Hello, everybody. Well, it is a pleasure to be here today, and I will try to explain a little how we work in our office in Madrid. Well, I am José María, and our lecture today will be, well, the title of the lecture, it is Singular Territories, and I will try to explain around 4 territories. Let's say, 4 projects in the end. But I don't want to speak so much about the project, but about the different strategies and how is our approach to those territories, to those projects. No? Let's see that we will talk about, I will talk about the Roman Temple of Diana, this kind of infrastructure in the middle of a old Roman city in Mérida, in Spain. This is the pavilion, a rowing pavilion, that is leading with the landscape in different way. This small industry that we just finished, where you will understand how the territory is modified in a singular way. And the last project, it will be this sports center in a wonderful place that is called Gabriel y Galán, well, the idea is not, like I already said, the idea is to try to explain how we approach both projects. You will see that some similarities are going on in the 4 sites, and some others are, well, I think there are so many similarities that it's interesting to try to understand the method we have been applying. In the Roman Temple of Diana, in this competition, we found this place like this. It was a chaos, and we had to put order on it. The competition was looking for a building around it, but we thought it was not so much necessarily a building itself, but let's say the new geometry, a new layer that would manage to organize that space. Of course, the first thing it was to try to understand all this such of chaos that we have in that area, and together with the archaeologists, we tried to realize that the important point on that situation, we have here some drawings from time ago, drawings from the archaeology, that they thought this situation was the old structure that the temple had around. And for us, it was very important, let's say, all this void around the building. We call it archaeological void, and that was, let's say, the key, and that was the goal of the project, to try to recharge, to try to put in value again that building through giving a new order. No? Like everybody knows, a Roman city always organized with this grid through the Cardus and the Cumanos. Well, this is a sonometric drawing where we can understand how was that archaeological void, so important for us. And in this way, we started to understand this irregular border, the irregular limit that the city have been appearing in the city time ago. It was this like that. We started to put order on it, and at the same time we were working, let's say, with the rare areas of the different houses. We were also working with that more regular geometry from ancient Roman time. So let's say, that the result, it was a mixture of both strategies, of both order, a very irregular one and a regular one. And in the end, working on that way, we realized that the shape, we realized that it was the model that appeared. No? So let's say that we didn't get a final form, a final geometry, but we managed, in the end, applying the different, both strategies, we arrived to that solution. No? I think all this thing I'm explaining about different traces, these different orders, can be understood quite well on this plan. No? This was the plan in Roman period, time ago. This is the actual plan in Mérida. Here you can recognize the amphitheater, theater, Roman, Rafael Moneo's Roman Museum, and all this very dense city around it, where a building should give a new order. Of course, for us, it was not important at all these streets we had around, but the important ones were the old lines. Some of them are the same ones, like you can recognize on this area. All that lines were the lines that had a sense for us. So let's say that our project was not answering to, say, the actual order, but to an ancient order that had value 2,000 years ago. This is very important to understand because we believe that the order that appears in a site is not always clear, but it's extremely important to understand. So the territory have orders, like in this case, that are not answering to this street. For example, we are crossing with our structure over the street itself, or we are not following the different limits we had around. So let's say that our project have another autonomy, have another reasons to be like that, more, let's say that a little more difficult to understand, but that, in my opinion, they were necessary to recharge again, to recuperate, to recover that archaeological space, that archaeological void, no? That I was explaining in the beginning. This is a picture from Google Earth where you can understand that this such a dense city need this void again. We create this new order around it, but at the same time, for us, it was very important to realize that it was not only a public space, but also, let's say, an archaeological area, no? We will see later. So in this very simple way, we added a new layer. And here you can recognize in different documents always the same strategy, but always the same shape, the same form. Until the end, we didn't decide which was the last dimension, the last exactly form of the project, but in every document, you can recognize the project itself. So let's say that all the rules, they were very clear from the beginning, but during the process of the project, we were, let's say, fighting with the irregular shape, with this border, until getting the last one. Well, I will just pass fast by the plans. I'm not so interested in them right now, but you can realize these, let's say, limits around the city, or in section, how the new structure is dealing with the building. It is just a structure. I am very interested, and I think that will be common in both, well, I think it's something common in our work, to try to understand architecture in this way, like a kind of framework, a kind of infrastructure where things should go on also happening in the end. Here is an image during the construction where you can realize how this new structure was dealing with the city. And here, almost finished, where all the complexity around the city were, let's say, we were keeping it, but at the same time, we were answering with this platform around with the old archaeological void that it was, in my opinion, the more important, well, the important point in the project. This new layer will allow to create different opportunities, new programs, so on, in the first floor, and a new, let's say, the new square, a new way of using this public space. We just work with a kind of artificial stone that it was made all in concrete, with a very neutral concrete made after trying different, let's say, different texture and different colors. We decided to work with white cement and just a kind of sand very similar to the one of the temple itself. So we create this background again to all this area. No? Of course, for us, it was not important at all to try to hide anything. It was not the idea to hide things. It was just a kind of a new geometry that should, let's say, it should capture again that archaeological space. So houses around were kept like they were. We were not interested in that. Here you can see the street crossing under our building, and just a neutral structure to be used for different things. Of course, public space, at least in Spain, is made by shadow. Shadow is necessary, so this new public area had a big shadow around the project, all around, creating a new limit, a new border that will allow to give life to all this space. The temple, before it was a building around a fence, but now suddenly it became a new element in the middle of a public area to cross by, to, I don't know, I think it was also a way of, let's say, of carrying the ruin, carrying the old temple to the city, again, putting in value. And here you have different images showing how it's used right now with different, well, so many things, no? So what is important is that in the same way that the old traces, the old order have a value in this project, in the next one, for example, a little rowing center, a little rowing pavilion, we have different context, different territory. It was a kind of a lake. Here you have, well, more or less this situation of we had a very clear edge between the lake and a small city here around. Our project somehow has to answer to this territory, in my opinion, trying to understand which was the rules of this, well, of this, and the necessities of this program. Of course, we understood that the city had this position over the lake, and our building wanted to be kind of very classic section of a kind of platform with a kind of, let's say, of a kind of baldacchino, no? A kind of element over it. But what is interesting in the project is that we changed the rules of classical architecture. Instead of having like this, let's say this, all this basement, instead of having this platform and the building on it, the building is holding the platform itself. So we changed the rules, and the big structure is allowing to have a kind of, let's say, covered square, where here the important things are the dimensions of the boats. In the end, after working with the program, we realized that the dimension of 21 per 21, this square of 21 meters, it was right for managing to use, for the use of the rowing boats and the different boats here inside. So this very strange shape that was given to us by the, let's say, by the owner, we didn't care so much about the shape, but we care again about how the different boats will move on this small pavilion. Then the rest of the surface, it was just for the rest of the situation, for, I don't know, for a kind of, for the gymnasium, we have a resting room or some bedrooms even. But what is interesting is to understand that the important part of the project, it was to control all this geometry for being able to have an empty room where all the activity could go on. This structure is holding all this roof, and here you can see clear, and in that way we have all this kind of covered square where everything, all the activities with the boats were going on. Again, it's a kind of a small infrastructure in this case, where the structure will become, let's say, will give the identity to this place, the character to the identity to the place. So the big structure is holding all that big room, and in the end, the structure itself becomes the facade, become, let's say, the image of the rowing center. In this way, we manage that the town is not only having the connection with the rest of the territory over the building itself, but also we have always this transparency, this situation that allowed the building, let's say, to connect with the surrounding, with all the landscape around. No? Of course, the edge is always a problem, and we have an opportunity to create a little area to sit down and to see the different competitions going on. So of course, the structure became an opportunity. No, we managed to have these kind of images when you were coming in. You create like all the situations because we use the structure itself to go inside by this ramp of all this area, and the podium had this other situation. No? So the building is built in very basic elements. The structure, we leave it free, almost all of it, just covering, the entrance, and always fighting with the edge, making the more neutral edge as possible to don't lose the connection to the rest of the territory. Some images with the access to the main room, a more dark, a dark room that somehow will allow us to forget a little. When you are practicing, when you are rowing outside, you are always outside with the sun, so on. So we thought it was important to create a more, let's say, a little darker room. No? This is the entrance to the pavilion, and I think it's a picture where you understand somehow both situations, no? How the structure, it is giving a new opportunity to this space, and how the structure, you feel the structure even when you are going in by this ramp holding from it. Somehow the structure is not only allowing to the building itself having this kind of big room behind to practice, but also it is the image of the place. No? And then something important, it is also this new little square that we open to the town. No? I think it's important that architecture is not only answering to the programs, but also giving new opportunities to, I think it's important to deal always with the public space. Well, right now, the third stage, is dealing with another completely different territory. No? Both territories have its own conditions, its own rules, let's say. Here we are in an industrial area, in a small industrial park from a small city, and you can see the different plots around, and always there are these kind of isolate buildings around it, and this surface around that is used like open area for trucks, lorries, so on. Well, our building is built here, and our strategy was different. No, we thought that instead of working an isolated building in the middle of very uninterested space, uninterested territory, why instead of doing that, we don't change the rules, we go to the limit, to the perimeter of the plot itself, and instead of having, let's say, an open courtyard, open patio, and then the courtyard is going on inside, controlling more or less all the process of this small industry, and of course, in that way, the rules and the process of how the industry is going on, it will change completely. No? In the end, we arrived to this structure where, let's say that the more important decision, it was to understand again a new order, a new trace. No? This one, it was how the trucks, how the different lorries, different machinery that is going on, will move around this industry, and which was the dimension for turning around all this, let's say, the interior courtyard that will give a new order to the industry. That decision, it was very important. In the end, we realized that this have to, the dimension, it was 30 meters. So we were working with 2 squares, and a square of 45 meters for the outside area, and a void inside of 30 meters. So in the plan, you can understand very clear that in the end, again, the shape of our building, the final shape is not a predetermined shape, is the result of applying this order that in this case, it was not already there, like in Roman temple, that, well, in Roman temple, it was a lost order, let's say, that we recover again. Here, the order, it was coming not only for the plot or for the, let's say, for the position of the building, but for all the different movement that the industry need to be going on. In this way, we made an action that for us is quite important, that is somehow to move a little one of the squares, so the void is moving on this direction. So in the end, we are creating 2 dimensions in the building, 6 meters wide on this area and 9 meters on this other area. So only with this decision, we managed to organize the program, the public, well, the more private, like offices, well, some meeting rooms, so on. It is, of course, it is incorporated in the 6 meters wide areas, and the industry itself, with the different areas, it was in the wider one. So let's say that the plan again, and this is what is important for me, it is the result of applying a strategy that is coming from a process itself. Then we decide that we work with 10 meters height on the higher points, and then we decide to open all the different corners, so also ventilations, so on, in the courtyards were going on. So in this industrial area, of course, we decided to work with, well, the materials we have on the way, let's say, on the area. No? So we work with a steel element, the steel panels, and in the same way that in the Roman temple, we decide to a material, and we, in this way of creating a kind of infrastructure, we work with only one material almost in all the project, or in the second one, in the Roman pavilion, it was also a very basic steel structure, let's say, showing somehow the structure itself, like the image and like the element that gave an identity to the place. Here, these panels, these metal panels, were working outside, but also working in the same way on the windows. We just made some holes, but it's the same element. So the same material, here you can see, is not only working for the facade, but also in the interior space. So we decide to work, let's say, with the same materiality in the project in each point of it. Here is a detail where you can understand how the facade is like moving a little to allow the light going on. And here you can realize how moving again, just without these doors, the facade, the tracks are coming in. And you realize how the movement of the tracks itself is giving a sense to the building, no? To the plan. In this image you can realize these different layers of all, you can see all the different layers of the building with the same panels outside, inside, and in the courtyard, no? So working with the same materials and how you're not sure if you're in an interior area or you are outside, no? I think it's again a decision that allowed us to create a new atmosphere and, I don't know, to give an identity to the place. Different details, always working with the same solution. And this image shows quite well the situation, no? It's also interesting to realize that a very light material, like steel, very light elements, are working, but instead of working with that lightness, we decide to work with thick walls, with a very, let's say, with a high isolate condition. That it was something important for the process, and it was a very, and in that way, I think we changed a little the conditions of classic architecture. No? Usually you think that when you are working with the steel or you are working with all this element, the project is something very light, very, in this way, when you are there, it is something strange, to realize that everything is quite thick. No? Interior space. Let's say that after deciding a detail, a construction detail, we tried to solve with it almost everything. So each one of our buildings have a kind of small research, construction research, parallel to it, well, that give solutions in different points. Well, sorry, and the last project, and the last project is it is placed on this area, seated on this area. Again, we have a kind of reservoir, water reservoir, this kind of artificial lake. This image, and if in the last projects, well, we were working with different rules. Here, I will start to show you how we built it. No? We took some steel pillars, we carried them there to this very natural area, full of trees, and like a kind of, we could say landscape, let's say a kind of landscape device. We started to build it, working with the same model always, and creating this new infrastructure that will give use, again, to a very neutral program. I like very much to deal with, I think architecture have to solve and have to answer to the programs that we are asking for, but at the same time, we need to give opportunities to new programs. So for me, it's very important to have a very neutral spaces able to change. Here, our strategy was very clear. We thought that such a big building of 8,000 square meters have to be integrated in the place by making as longitudinal building as possible. So in that way, it was not possible to see all of it. You only could see a part of the building in each point because the topography and the trees or the vegetation around change, doesn't allow you to see the building itself. No? So what is important for us, it is to realize that we added a new order, we added a new geometry, we added, let's say, a new device, where of course, to a territory, where the importance is not the device itself, but the relationship that appear with the territory. So that is interesting because in each point, of course, in each point of it, the relationship between the territory and the building is different. So you have the experience that each part of the building is completely different. But in real, we're working with just a building itself. I like this picture very much. You should realize that this kind of big ring, we are talking about that to run, or to walk over the roof, to turn around the building, we are talking about 630 meters. Let's say that it is a ring of 200 meters. So a football stadium can be put inside of it. So the dimension is so big that in that way, we managed to integrate this new infrastructure, this new building, on the site itself. If you look carefully on the image, you have the different traces, the different lines, again the order of the site, no, depending on what is the level of the water, and we realized that our building, this sport center, I didn't explain it still a program, I will explain it now. It will become a new ring, a new trace that is answering to the territory, answering to the persistent rules. This sport center, in real, it is made by 12 associations, 12 different sports. All the sports are related to nature. That was the important point with it. They wanted to create, it was a competition we won, but the key of the competition was to create a new innovation center of sport and nature that will give also a new identity and a new image to all this area. So let's say that in that way, it is not a building, it is an infrastructure that keep inside of it different buildings, small buildings all around, that each one have an area around where to practice rowing, sailing, mountain, different sports in mountain, triathlon, different areas, different sports. No? So all of them have an area for practicing and a small space to research about it and so on. So we were working with, I already said, with this big ring, 200 meters diameter, and we built it all in steel. For us, it was very important to show that the building, it was a kind of device, something that suddenly you can build and carry away. And this, so we used these steel panels of 5 meters high, 50 centimeters wide, and just using the same element, the same construction everywhere. No, all the building itself is solved in the same way. No, so the rules was that if we need a window, we took away one of that panels. If we need all these courtyards, a courtyard that we have between each program, we took away different panels. The panel have also this, it gives this bright and this little reflection that is taking somehow the lights or the colors, no, even of the site. No? Somehow, our idea was that integration on this place have to be made by contrast, as different as our project will be to the surrounding or to the territory itself, as much as it will be the integration on it. Like I already said, of course, the landscape changed, territory changed. This is the higher point where we are on the territory is almost higher than the building itself. So the relationship with the rest of the territory is made over the building. But in this other area, you see the shadow around, like we already saw in the Roman temple of Diana. And the shadow is showing us that the building is up. So we have the connection, it is made by a vertical element. So in that way, this very neutral geometry is dealing in each point in different way with the territory. Here you can see this infrastructure, the different buildings that we were asking for, and always this space in between that allowed us to have a connection to the roof, moving on the roof, coming down again, connections in diagonal. Of course, it's senseless to think that a building like that you can be walking around by a corridor or by an interior circulation. No? In the end, they are different units, completely isolated, completely autonomous units, and all of them are creating a kind of street, of a kind of facade are 630 meters long. So the decision to use always the same detail, the same decision, the same, but of course changes depending on how much dimension we had. It was necessary to build the project. It was a project that was built in 7 months. No? It was something very rare that they were very much in a hurry, and we have to think on the competition also in the way of building it and to convince that that was able to be made. So what is important is to realize that, again, in the same way that in the Roman temple we have very fixed rules and some other open rules that we have to deal with them until getting to the last shape, to the last plan, let's say. Here happened a little the same. We had the decision to work with this big ring that is answering to that more organic ring that already exists on the territory, but the dimension of each one of the building was open. No? So until the end, everything could change. Some of this association wanted more square meters, like you can see here. Some of them were smaller. Some wanted to have some orientation, or some of them are more divided inside, and some of them are more open. So I think it's important in that way to deal with different scale, to deal with different complexity in terms of geometry, in terms of, let's say, I think it's important to have freedom during the process of the project and also even when the project is finished. No? Well, just some details going closer. And all the project is built, is a kind of dry construction built by method. No? So in the end, it happened a little the same. No? In the Roman temple, we have the columns, or in the little pavilion, we have the boats, no? The rowing boats. But here we have the trees. No? Let's say we have the trees, and in larger scale, we have the lake around. Sometimes the building is closer to the ground floor. Some other times it's higher. But it's always the same level. We don't change our construction. What is changing is the territory, it is the topography. Of course, if you have a circular building, you have every moment of the year all the orientations and you have, of course, different situations. So the facade, I like very much that sometimes it gets some brightness, like here. Some other times it is a kind of more neutral. Sometimes you have like more density. And this is the shadow again, in the same way. For us, it's very important always to create an extra space, public extra space that gives a new opportunity not only to the user of the building, but also to the citizens or to the visitors. Well, different situations, how our device is dealing with the surrounding. And now we are going inside, always between different programs. We have this space, between this space, no? This is the lower area where we are moving some earth. And when you go inside this very neutral space, how is a kind of open space to whatever thing can be going on. No? It's a kind of workshop areas. So. I like especially this picture, no, where you see how of course you are changing the rules. No? You are creating, in some areas, a limit that you have to cross around through it to pass from one place to another by the patios, by the different courtyards in one place or the other. Or sometimes you can walk through the building, no? But of course the territory is changed by the new order. And for finishing, you can see how here is a place now it's quite popular in Spain, and so many competitions are going on, ceiling competition, or this was running. I think it was a triathlon going on, and it's nice how suddenly they started to organize. Let's say that the geometry of the trail itself is following the ring. No, like this image, where the people is running, following a new structure, or even that boat that is taking pictures or recording or whatever, is again following the territory. So in the end, let's say that our architecture, is of course is trying to understand as much as we can the conditions, the persistence conditions, all the persistent rules, and then afterwards answering in one way or another, but in the end creating new rules that give new opportunities to each territory. Okay, I think we finish here. Thank you very much.